Today, I'm excited to introduce you to Tim Stokes, an integrity-based systems architect, business mentor, truth in AI researcher, and the author of Scaling with Margin. For more than 28 years, Tim has helped business owners boost profit margins, reduce stress, and build companies that run smoothly with integrity at the center. His work has created real transformations from doubling and tripling revenues in just months to helping business owners step back from 80-hour work weeks and finally enjoy freedom. But Tim's expertise doesn't stop with business. He also is at the forefront of AI truth research, developing the VIRAM system and framework designed to expose distortions in AI models. He works with directors and founders, entrepreneurs across industries, delivering consistent results and building scalable businesses that thrive. Please join me in welcoming Tim Stokes. Thank you very much for taking the time, Tim, for speaking with me. And before we were recording, when we were starting on our first chat, is what came up was the what, and then the how is following on to these questions. I really wanted to get into your what, and what keeps you ticking as an entrepreneur. And I guess one of the very first points that we can start on with is the actual definition or the meaning that you place on your entrepreneurship. And so what is an entrepreneur to you, Tim?
Well, that's a big question to start with. So what is an entrepreneur? An entrepreneur to me, first of all, they're a risk taker. And I learned that they see opportunities where other people fear to tread, you could say. Where other people see risk, they see opportunity. And so they bravely, courageously delve into things and explore ideas and concepts that in untrodden paths where others pretty much fear to tread. So they, first of all, they tend to do things that are against the norm. They tend to do things that other people think, oh, that probably wouldn't work, or no one's doing that, so why would you want to do that? So my brain is attuned to when I hear the word everyone, this is what everyone does in our industry, then I'm like, well, okay, there's a good reason not to. How can we not be like everyone in the industry? So to me, they're contrarians. They're different. If you look at Elon Musk said, let's build electric cars. Everyone's like, why would you build electric cars? The whole world's dominated by petrol. No one's doing that. Why would you want to do that? And so off he went. So to me, it's that person who does they innovate. They don't copy. They're not copiers. They're leaders. And so by the definition, they're pioneers, and they go out and explore opportunities and do things that other people haven't done. And that to me is an entrepreneur.
Awesome. All right. Thank you for sharing. So someone who goes out there is willing to take on, but where other people have saw risks, they have been able to see an opportunity in there, and they've been able to take that and do something with it.
That's it. And they're not going to succeed all the time. So they're going to fail. But like Elon Musk is saying that his SpaceX may go broke, may not keep operating. So they're not like people that's what makes them different, because they don't have any fear of failure. They just have they're driven by a passion. They're pulled, they're not pushed. A lot of people are pushed by, I have to do this and I have to do that. They're not in that mode. They're in just, this looks like a great thing. They get passionate about their vision of what they see, and then they're pulled towards it all the time by imagining a world being a different place or a better place because of their business, so they're going to put into the world their ideas. And so they're pulled towards that. And pull is a lot better force than push. Push, you feel like you're stressed, whereas pull, you're driven by passion. So being pulled forward. And so when something doesn't work out, it's like, oh, well, learn some things. What's next? They don't cry about it. They don't sit there stewing on it and blaming the world and this happened and that happened, pointing the finger at everyone else. They just go, oh, well, didn't work out. Let's on to the next adventure, and away they go. So that's part of the reason why they are fearless, because they don't fear repercussions or outcomes. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, move on.
Yeah, so if basically they're maybe seeing these outcomes as just another step in that opportunistic kind of path that they're on. It's if just one paver is getting laid down and you can't really tell where the next paver is going to be until it's down, you might get a good idea. You know, the edging might be up on your landscaping job or so, but until that next path's down, you don't know that next path, right? So
Yeah.
to jump in too early is going to be more risky than waiting and seeing and hedging your bets along the way. So let's continue.
Yeah, I find their brain is wired with the word what. They're driven by what. What do I want to see in the world? What needs to happen in the world? What are the opportunities in the world? What's the world missing? What business can I put into the world that's going to make a difference in society? They don't think about how. How is like, their brain's just not wired for the word how. Someone says, how are you going to do it? I don't know. This is what I want. And they just keep talking about what they want until someone says, oh, you could do it like this. Okay. Do you want a job? So they're not, as they say, that the people that drop out of school and don't go to uni are the entrepreneurs that go and hire all the people with degrees, because uni's wired to teach you how to do things. You become a specialist, and specialist word for generalist. And so their brain, the generalists are the what people. They're driven by why. They have their what. This is what I want in the world. This is why I want it. So what to me comes first, closely followed by why. They think about what they want, and then they understand why they want that. Sometimes it's why before what, but I tend to find it's generally what first. And it's like, what's my goal? What's my vision? What do I need to achieve? What do I need to do today? What do I need to do this month? Their brain is just wired in what. And when I meet these entrepreneurs and I'd start talking about how, it's like I'm talking Chinese. I'm talking a different language. The brain doesn't work on how. It's like, I don't know. Stop annoying me with dumb questions. It'll happen. So they just keep focusing on what they want. They don't know how it's going to happen, but to them, it's not relevant. The how will be revealed when they get clear on what they want. It just happens. It just turns up. And sooner or later, someone will say, oh, this is how. Because they're putting an energy into the world that makes people think and attune to that energy. And when they attune to that energy, they start to see that vision in their mind, and they start to imagine how it can even happen. So the how people start to kick in. And a lot of people have got no idea. I've met people, for example, I met a guy that worked with Harvey Norman for a long time when he was very, very new and getting started, and then helped him to build a very successful business. And he said he's not a how person. He's not you wouldn't call him even a smart man. He has knowledge, but he doesn't care about all the details of what makes his businesses successful. All he knows is if he does this, then things just happen. So he just focuses on what he wants all the time. It's just what. And he just employs lots of how specialists, the how people work for the what's, because they have that technical know-how knowledge, but they're still working for the what-wired entrepreneurs.
Yeah, so then having this bigger question of what are you doing it for, that purpose, so that you can actually be pulled along. The motivation is a pull motivation. So a big understanding of the what, and then being able to get the people around you that can actually pull it off and figure out the why for you. Yeah, cool. So continue.
Yeah, for 25 years I've been working with business owners, and the first thing I do when we say, right, let's start working together, the very first session I do, I call it a vision session. I was like, what do you want to achieve from your business 2 to 5, 10 years time? What do you imagine your life to be like? That's the whole stack of what questions I ask. And what I find for the majority of business owners, their vision of what they want is like this little couple of specks, and all you can do is make out a vague shape, visually describing this. It's a couple of vague ideas of what they want in the future, and that's it. And I've worked with businesses without doing the vision session first, because I'm a researcher. I love researching. How are you going to be successful? I like how, I like what, I like why, I like the whole package, not just the what, but not just the how, I like the whole package. And so I find that if I don't do that vision and say, can you help me to do this? Which means, I don't know how to do this. Can you help me to do this? I go, sure. And sometimes I've just jumped in with businesses initially to do that. And I found that they just lose momentum. They just don't accelerate growth and improvement in their business. They start to hit roadblocks and they start to see obstacles. And I've studied this whole dynamic, this whole relationship with the what, why, and how for a long time. And I've found that when you get clear of what your vision is, it starts to generate a passion within you. And it only happens, and this usually takes a couple of hours for me to do this vision session. It's not a 5-minute exercise. It's like it's like dragging it out of them. Come on, what do you really want? Oh, well, and what happens in our society is we don't like to think about what we can achieve if we don't know how. So we think how comes before what. When I know how to do something, then I'll set some goals. But that's not how an entrepreneur thinks. An entrepreneur is the complete opposite. They have no idea of how, but they have the courage to think about what, and they just keep thinking what, and why. And so I find that when I work with clients and I don't do a very strong vision session first, they don't go anywhere. A month or two later, oh yeah, this is happening. And they just start telling me about dramas, and they're focusing on the obstacles and how big they are, because they don't have that energy to pull them over it. And I love a saying that I heard a long time ago: obstacles are what you see when you take your eyes off your goals. If you don't have those clear goals as a vision in your mind, that is a 20/20 panoramic landscape in your mind, is a clear picture instead of little dots. Oh, it'd be nice to have this one day. Yeah, that's a dot. But if you say, hey, I say you're living in your dream house. What's your dream house look like? Oh, a couple of stories. Yeah, keep going. What color bricks? What color roof? How many garages? Flat block? How many acres? And I just keep asking questions. And I said, this is really, really important. You get a picture in your mind of what that vision looks like, because then it becomes emotional. Until it's 20/20, there's no emotion. Oh, it'd be nice to have this one day. Yeah, there's no pull power from that. There's nothing that's going to pull you towards that. There's no emotional engagement. And it's to overcome challenges to grow a business. Well, you definitely have some. So if you want to have a radical improvement in your business, you got to have a radical change of thinking. It can't just be, oh, I'm going to change 2%. I'm going to triple my turnover in 6 months. Never going to happen, because there's such a radical difference to where you are. You want to have a radical improvement in your life. You got to have a radical change of thinking. And a radical change of thinking to me is get emotionally engaged with what it is that you want to achieve. And it lifts you up to a different state of mind where you start to see the path. You start to see how it can be achieved by attuning your mind to a different frequency. And then that path it will start to be revealed. The universe will start to show the way forward. People will appear. Things just happen because you're stating something really clearly and precisely. And I put it all in writing. I ask all my clients, what do you want? I type it all up as they're telling me. It all gets typed up, written. There it is. Give it back to them. And they say, oh, such a powerful session. I'm really clear on what I want. But I'm pulling him into courage. I'm giving him the courage to dream, because our society doesn't like dreaming. It's like, oh, I'm going to own a Ferrari one day. Ah, yeah, right. You watch the comments if you say that in society to anyone, even your friends, your well-meaning friends that are trying to help you. No. And so you don't tell people your vision unless they're part of helping you achieve it. Otherwise, don't tell anyone, because entrepreneurs, they're not sheep. They're eagles. They're flying on their own. They're not flocking. They got to do the things that other people won't do, because it takes courage to do that. So it's really important, I find, to be an entrepreneur yourself. Business owners start with it because they're risk takers. They go into business. They give up security of knowing they're going to get paid every week, go into business for themselves, and they are. But then all the realities of how hard it is to run a business kick in, and 3 and 5 years later, the vision's getting a little bit diluted now, if it's there at all. They're losing that entrepreneurial spark, that fire, because they realize it's so much harder than what they thought. Not for everyone. Some have the magic recipe, off they go, sail into the future and super successful and all that. But I think that's about 3%. The other 90% of people need to go through a lot of learning and change of mindsets to understand how to be that entrepreneur and how to get off the tools. And because there is a fascination with men to be how-to people. We are taught that as a young age. Oh, look, son, learn how to do this, learn how to do that. You need to know how to do this. There's a lot of how conditioning from adulthood into kids. And so kids think it's all about how you got to do good grades at school so you can get a good job and go to uni and become a technician and become a how-to person and fit into the world. So to go into business, it's hard to get off the tools and be that manager or true business owner where working is optional, because your team work without you being there, and you got to deal with all the conditioning that comes up, like, oh, but my staff won't work hard if I'm not there. Yeah, you're talking about how. You're still talking about how. When so most of the obstacles that come up in your own mind, they're how-based thinking. You don't know how. So you're still thinking, how's the solution? It's about what?
Yeah.
It's about why.
Exactly. Until you have like that clarity or that courage, like you're saying, to step into the what, to step into that possibilities. So should we be putting any limitations on ourselves when we're doing this vision session? If we're not exactly sure, what would I know you said it takes about 2 hours, but can you give us like the real quick version of how could we do this for ourselves if we're not sure of where we're going, where we're not confident that we've been asking ourselves those what questions that are fundamental to help move us forward? What is a quick session that we could do for ourselves to understand this what questions?
Well, start with the word what, and then I put a lot of questions. And you do small and you do big. Big macro is 10 years time. Describe what would your ideal life look like? That's a big macro one. Micro can be, what drives you in business? What's your motivator of business? What motivates you in business? What difference do you want to make with your business in the world? What difference do you want to make to your workplace environment in terms of employees? What do you want your life to be like in 2 years, 5 years time? In 2 years, you can achieve virtually anything. 2 years in business is an eternity. So you can just about imagine what you want. I met a guy in a 2-day workshop I ran in Sydney a long time ago, and I said, what's your goal? He goes, I have a business at 1.5 million turnover in 2 years. And I said, that's a great goal. I said, where are you at now? Oh, I'm still working in a job. But the way he said it, he was so confident. I want to be at 1.5 million in 2 years. I'm like, oh, what are you at now? 1 million? He was like, no, I haven't got the business yet. But he was so confident and clear in articulating what he wanted. And that's the key. The hardest thing about this exercise is to deal with the psychobabble in your head that's going, oh, yeah, who are you to think that you can achieve that? You don't know how you're going to do it, so why would you think that? And you've got to deal with that. That's what's really hard. The exercise is really easy. The crap in your head that's trying to talk you out of putting all the answers to those questions, that's the hardest thing. You just got to tell it, shut up, brain, this is what I'm doing. I'm doing this exercise. And it's an answer to this question. What would you want if time and money, there was no limitation? If there was no limitation of time and money, what would you really want? And you answer that detailed. And if you're married and you got a kid or 2 or 5, whatever, then it might be, well, I want them to go to uni. Great. What uni? What do you want them to do? What would you like them to be in the outcome? And make it broad. It doesn't have to be really specific. What would your ideal home look like? What would your ideal cars look like? What sort of toys would you like? Would you like a jet ski? Would you like a boat? And you just keep answering these what questions. What would your business look like in 2 years or 5 years? What relationship do you want to it? Would you like to work in it or not work in it? Would you like to have a manager or no manager? Like what do you want your role to look like in 2 years or 5 years or 10 years? What would your life look like? What would your day look like? What would a day in your life look like? What number of days would you work in a week?
Yeah, all so we can see how with the macro and the micro being on it, like we can start from any one angle, I guess, if you're going on with a theme of career, starting off big of what is it that you see yourself kind of doing, and then get smaller and smaller, or what kind of certificates or education or reputation do I need to get to this next step. So I guess this works both forward and backwards, macro to micro and micro to macro. I guess there's the value in being able to unlock kind of your imagination, your creativity in a way that doesn't have any restrictions on you or doesn't. So coming in completely like kind of fresh to whatever is thrown out. So beautiful brainstorming exercise, right?
Yeah, it is. I remember sitting down with a guy, because I used to ask all these questions, and I remember this guy in Sydney I had back in about 2002. I said, and he said, do you really want details on this? I go, yeah, give me them all. And he's one of the few people that's asked me, do you want all the details? And he went on, and I wrote 3 pages of notes. I was handwriting them all. I'm just writing all these notes. And he was like, do you want me to stop now? Keep going. And he just he had no fear of telling me what he wanted. And he'd already had, and he said, I'm so frustrated because I've spent 50 grand with people. I couldn't get the results I wanted. So he said, the how's what I'm lacking. He said, I've got the vision. I went, yeah, you're right. You have got the vision. And anyway, he was at 12 grand a month. bathroom renovation business, and he tried this and tried that. Like I said, spent 50 grand from 3 different companies trying to get, how do I grow my business? And I took over, and first thing I did was did the vision session. I said, let's rewrite your ads. I said, that's the first thing, your ads are crap. And he was so bitten and gun shy that he had to run the new ad that I wrote him, and it was only a little trade service ad, like 5 centimeter high, little tiny, only had in the back of a newspaper, that he had to run my new ad with his old ad because he thought my ad was going to be so bad that he couldn't replace his old ad. And then when he found, and he asked everyone, how'd you find me? And he said, which ad was it? And they told him. He had, 600% increase from the response from my ad compared to his. And then he went, oh, okay, this works. His business went to 120K in 7 months. So he was doing 120K per month in 7 months from 12K. So, massive growth, and just kept growing and growing and growing. But I realized that vision session is how hard my work is to try to get them. I'm pulling them. Most business owners, I'm pulling in. I'm trying to drag them into focusing on the what. Yeah, you got 5,000 things going on in your business. That's not growing your business. We can talk about that and talk about problems, or we can talk about put this strategy in. Let's go. Let's grow your business. And so when they don't have a clear vision, it's harder for me because they're stuck in all the dramas and all the problems and what's going on. I'm trying to pull them in that entrepreneurial mindset, and it's focus on what? You get your priorities right, you grow like that. If you talk about other things that aren't your priorities, you don't make, it's all priorities. You've got to get your priorities right. And that's where the what session identifies what your priorities are. Well, what do you need to do first? What do you need to do second? What do you need to do third? And you sequence out what you need to do now to achieve that end goal. Well, what do you need to do now? What do you need to do this week? And so I break it from macro back to micro. Right, what do we need to do now? This is a priority. Let's do this first. And away you go. But when you're always going to see obstacles, you're always going to see problems. There's always going to be dramas in your business until there aren't. But that might be a year or two before you're going to get there. It's worthwhile, sticking on the what and sticking on the priorities. And you're going to deal with some stuff because you're dealing with change. Change means things are going to happen. Things are going to be different. I lost my best employee. And I don't smile, but I smirk a little and kind of think, okay, let's go and hire another one. And then they hire someone better than anyone they've ever hired, and then go, that was a good thing, them leaving. I go, yeah, it takes about 2 to 4 weeks to find out when you lose an employee that that's actually a good thing. You think it's a bad thing at the time because, I lost this employee and they left me, you're crying about it, but you go and replace them with a lot better one when you get a really good recruitment system like I have. And then you hire a lot better quality people. They go, wow, I think we need to hire another person. These people aren't so good. But that's what I mean. It's so easy to focus on the problems and the dramas that happen. You lose sight of the vision. You lose sight of the dream because stuff gets in the way of it. And that's the challenge,
Yeah, it's being able to look, I guess, at all these things that come up your way as either really downer, really obstacle driven, and then burden laden with the language that we use on it, obstacles and failure, to then an opportunity of finding someone better. Of, well, you weren't going to have to replace this person, but now you've got this beautiful opportunity to get better onwards. So I guess just in that understanding, well, then all the drudgery is now no longer there, because every single day that you're going in and doing your book work or any task, you can be looking at a way to improve it, to make it more productive, to make it more fun, and I guess if you can keep going into business looking at that, then it's only a matter of time, right? If you're coming in and seeing the whole world as a solution, that, or all activities as something that can be bettered, or have any obstacle as something that can be overcome, well, then I guess if you were facing an obstacle, how many other people are facing the obstacle the same as you? And if it worked for you, if your solution had to work for you, well, then how many other people could this also work for? So I guess this is really then really at the heart of what all entrepreneurs have always been doing ever since the start of kind of trade and commerce, is these big whats. What needs to be, what am I doing this for? What?
Yeah, that's it. What drives me? Why does it drive me? And understanding yourself. Yeah, don't sweat the small stuff is another saying. So I love picking up quotes along the way over the years because they're principles of wisdom. You learn from, other people that have been there before you. So
Yeah.
it's like whatever your problem is in business, it's usually not a problem. It's just a temporary setback and overcome it. It's like, has anyone in the industry ever dealt with this problem? Yeah. Have anyone in your industry overcome this problem? Then why do you think it's such a big problem? It's insurmountable. It's not. It's any problem in business can pretty much be conquered. Very rare that you get a business that I got this problem. Yeah, I can't find good staff. My response is, well, if you got a lot of competitors, I got lots of competitors. Well, you got lots of staff. They just don't work for you. You just got to attract them. You got to attract them because most people that write an ad look like they're recruiting for the army. It's dull and it's boring, and good quality people don't even apply because they look like the same jerk company I'm working for. I'm not going to apply for that. Yeah. So good people are not employed. They're working for your competitors, feeling undervalued and underappreciated. You're going to know how to write an ad to attract them. So it's like whatever problem people tell me they have, it's not really a problem. You can overcome it, but you can focus on it and turn it into a drama and get all emotional and dramatic and stressed. Or you can go, there is a solution to this. I got to find it because other people have had it. They've overcome it. So therefore it's possible. Am I a can-do person or am I, it's too hard person? And it's just getting a bit of a reality check, look in the mirror and go, can you overcome this? Yeah, well, start thinking about how to overcome it instead of dwelling on the fact you got a problem.
Yeah, I guess this is your path could be paved in all these golden nuggets along the way, right? Like how many businesses have had to pivot or change their offer, and it was to one that was unexpected at that time because they were happy to kind of go with that path of least resistance. They weren't hanging on to their cash cow who was no longer their cash cow.
Yeah.
Just because they had that courage to keep asking these bigger questions, even maybe when they were in the trenches doing that day to day. So when entrepreneurs are coming to you, because we haven't even really touched on you're doing consulting work, I guess, with them, if you just want to tell me a little bit of the work, and by the time they come to you, is it still relevant, if they're 5-10 years in asking these what questions? So just a little bit on your background and just the work that you're discussing with us, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. So I got into business in 1983, a long time ago, and it was a tree service business, and I was very young. I think I was 20. Yeah, I was. And I got into business with an entrepreneur, a really entrepreneurial guy, and it was like, great person to go into business with. And then he said, I'm going to be a silent partner. I didn't know what that meant. But after doing a little bit of hands-on work, he kind of went, that's enough for me. And I'll help you in the background. And you can use my trucks and all that, hire the trucks from me and all that. Yeah, no problem. And then after thinking about a year and a half, he just sort of went, I don't want to be in this business, because he kind of realized it wasn't going to make that much money, not the money he wanted, not as a small partner anyway. And then I bought him out. So I was in business on my own. I had no idea. I didn't even know that I didn't know anything about business, which is kind of a sad reality. And then I ended up working for a company for a while, made them a lot of money. Okay, well, I've got some skills because I can make another business a lot of money. Okay, back into business for myself. And then ended up going into business with a partner who was quite entrepreneurial, and his father's very entrepreneurial, and he gave me some insight. So that business kind of took off like a rocket. Didn't do the right thing by me. Took a lot of cash out of the business, which I found, and I'm back on my own again, went on my own again. But around that time, my accountant at the time gave me a book called The E-Myth Revisited. And I recommend every person who is in business, starting a business, or has grown a business for a while, read that book. A lot of people used to say they should make it compulsory to read that book, because why businesses don't work and why businesses fail and why business owners are technicians and not entrepreneurs. It's all that whole subject. And the E-Myth stands for the entrepreneurial myth. You think you're an entrepreneur when you go into business? No, you're not. You're a technician. And that book completely changed my whole perspective. And then I did a 2-day workshop with the author in Sydney at the time, Michael Gerber, and I learned what topics were called marketing and advertising and the difference between the two, and sales and systems and finances and HR and recruitment, all these topics of business I didn't really even know existed as a topic. And so I went, good, now I know what I don't know. Now I better go and learn it. And so I did a marketing workshop with Jay Abraham, and 2-day workshop, and he talked all about measuring. You got to measure results and just ask people, how do you find this, and track it and track leads and sales. And So I took a bit of a scientific approach to marketing, and then sure enough, I started using what I'd learned from him, and I got another company called Results Corporation. I became mentored by copywriters and marketers and applied it into my own business, because you hear all this theory, but you need someone to really teach you how to do it for your own business, and I did. And my leads doubled, tripled, my conversion rates increased, my prices went up 20, 30%. And I went from working 80 hours a week down to 30 hours a week, making about 4 times more. Life was great. But then I realized that putting all this stuff in place, I was in a tree service industry, climbing trees for a living, had a shoulder dislocated once. And I went a few times in the industry, and I can't keep doing this. I got to get out of the industry. And then I got into business coaching as a pilot franchisee, and then started teaching business owners what I thought. I met a business. I remember meeting a business that turned over $2 million, a kitchen renovation company. And I thought, I can't help them. That's a pretty decent sized business. And they probably know a lot more than me. And when I asked them a lot of questions, what's your conversion rate? Don't know. It's pretty good. You track how many leads you get? No. Do you run team meetings? No. What systems you got in your business? Well, none really. Like, how'd you get the 2 million turnover? So I realized that even though I didn't feel like I knew much, I knew 5 to 10 to 20 times more than just about any business owner I met, even though I just started in the industry, because I'd just been through this learning curve myself and applying the things in my own business. And then I just started working with businesses, and I just started realizing that I had to learn more about business than what they were ever going to know if I'm going to pull them forward with my knowledge. And so I just started doing that. And I experimented with certain strategies in certain order. I found if I didn't do that vision session first, no traction. They'd fix one thing in their business. I had a vision to fix everything and take it to a really high level, and they had no vision. So they'd fix one thing and really busy, haven't got time to talk to you. No vision, no goals, no drive. So I just learned that certain things are done in a certain order, and that was the first thing I always did. Typically, if they're established business and they got staff, I'll do a team meeting first, because that's the best strategy you can put into just about every business, and no one even knows that. I could talk about that for hours alone, because it's just extraordinary what difference that makes in businesses. It changes the frequency. Everyone gets happier, including the business owner. Less stress on the business owner, more time for the business owner. Staff need less supervision. They're happier. They become autonomous. There's so many benefits that kick in from a team meeting. And then I typically get into measuring third, because you got to kind of take your ego out of how to run a business and look at the facts and what do the numbers say. Numbers say you don't have enough sales. Guess what you're doing the next week? Implementing this strategy to increase sales. Or your team's not performing well. You need to focus on talking to your team for the next week. You let your numbers guide you to take your ego out of it. And so measuring became typically the third thing I worked on. But sometimes it's different these days. And sometimes it's like your website's generating crap leads. You don't know that, but that's why your conversion rates are hurting. And by the conversations you're having with potential clients, you think that's as good as they get. No, your marketing attracts the cream of the crap, or it can attract the cream of the crop. You're attracting the cream of the crap because you've got a website that is not built by a marketing expert. It's built by a person who's good at coding. I'm a marketing expert. Change the images, change the text. Let's get better quality customers that convert so much easier. They're great to deal with. You're less stressed because you've got better clients that you're dealing with. Your staff are happy because they haven't got crappy clients, things like that. So whatever challenges is in a business, I like to automate businesses. Depending on the age of the owner, if they're in their 30s, they don't like the idea of not working in their business. But if they're about 45 to 50, then I say, would you like to have a business that runs without you and completely running under management, and working becomes completely optional, as in don't work at all? Would you like that? Yeah. I don't know how that can be achieved. Don't worry about it. I know I've got the how. But do you want that as an outcome? Yeah, good. Let's get that happening then. And so whatever the problem is, we just solve it. My record is 10 months to get a business owner working 80 hours a week to working 0, running under management, not having to work in their business again for years. So, it's like whatever your problem, you can overcome it. It's conquerable.
Yeah, cool.
So that's a bit of how I work.
So you start off with the big vision, getting the team on board, understanding where the different elements, the different human elements, the dynamics within the business, and then working on measuring these outcomes is your first point of call, these three, diving into the what. So that has been really beneficial to understand some of that big picture stuff, because I guess unless it's understood or unless you have that clarity, then it's very hard to know where that next step is taking. But to allow ourselves to dream and to ask these bigger questions sometimes is we've almost trained ourselves out of it. Maybe our education that we went through or the people that we've put ourselves around has limited in some way that we are not even aware of. So doing these exercises as a first and foremost, but then coming back and touching on these over time is definitely going to help any entrepreneur or any business stay targeted and stay focused on what they're in business to do in the first place, and to really hit their goals, hit what is success for them at that given point in time. Yeah, wonderful. So then it really goes on to these questions of the how and the tracking. So if we've got our big vision, how do we break that down and put it into these tiny little bits that we can actually use without our ego, without that our human emotions coming in? How do we let the science of business kind of take lead as opposed to the humanity of business?
There's a few disciplines that you need to have to be really successful in business. The first discipline is you must work on your business, and that's about 90% of businesses are probably not working on their business in a disciplined way. And what I recommend you do is at least 4 hours a week, and a good time to do that is Monday morning, first thing, 2 hours. That's it. Lock it into your calendar, because it's a great thing to start a week with clarity of what you're aiming to achieve. It puts you into that vision mode. What are my priorities this week? What do I need to work on this week? And then you start actioning that first thing of your week. And people go, I haven't got time. Okay, here's the reality of that. You always find time for what's important. That's the fact of life. You always have time for what's important. If you deem it to be important, you will act on that. If you don't deem it to be important, you don't. If you deem growing your business is important, demonstrate it. Don't talk about it, demonstrate it. Put in 4 hours a week and work on your business. If otherwise your actions speak so loudly, I cannot hear the words you say. So demonstrate it's important to you. Put 4 hours a week into your working on your business. Because if you don't work on it, Albert Einstein or someone said the definition of insanity is keep doing what you're doing and think something's going to change. If you don't work on your business, it's not changing. So 2 hours on a Monday, last 2 hours on a Friday. Wind down the week with review the week, what they do, what do I need to do? Okay, Monday morning, let's go and implement it, kind of thing. So if you're getting that discipline of first thing Monday actions, last thing of the week, Friday afternoon, contemplate, review, what do I need to focus on? Because you got to pull yourself out of the trees to see the forest. That's the first thing that I do. I'm forest orientated all the time. Always forest orientated. We're going to do this strategy. Good. Let's get at the coalface and granular. Let's get into specific details exactly how to implement. Let's do it, and let's do it now. But then it's okay. That strategy's done. Now let's review the last strategy that we implemented and how'd that go. So I'm always looking top down. How'd the whole strategy go? Let's get into putting the strategy. So you got to do that. Look at the forest and get into the trees. But the problem is they're in the trees all the time, running a busyness, not seeing that they're not making progress. And I like to ask business owners sometimes annoying questions like, what significant measurable progress have you made in your business in the last 6 months? I like to shorten it to 3, because 6 months is an enormous amount of time to make no progress. Because that's why you get frustrated. That's why you get stressed, because nothing's happening, So in fact, it should be significant measurable progress every 3 months, but I start with 6 months that you can see measurable facts-based progress. And if you can't, then what you're working on is not your priority, because when you get clear of your priorities, businesses grow. So there's things like that. Just get into certain disciplines. And if you want a successful business, demonstrate it, start looking at numbers on a weekly basis. I had the good fortune of seeing what Rupert Murdoch does to manage his businesses remotely, the billionaire. And when I was in Sydney, I had a guy who was a general manager of one of his businesses. It was a newspaper office. And he said, would you like to come in and check out the business? I said, love to. I met him on the committee of a Chamber of Commerce, and he showed me around, and I learned businesses 3 main functions: get the sales, do the work from the sale, delivery, service, whatever, and get paid for the sales. So it's 3 things, but all 3 need to balance. All 3 are equally important, which is what I learned from this guy. He sort of said, well, there's our sales team over there. These are the reports I've got to send to Rupert Murdoch. Okay, there's my delivery people, which are all the journalists, sell advertising, journalists, write the news, all that sort of stuff. And I went, okay, good. And then he said, we've got the finance people in here chasing the money, getting paid on time and all that. So he said, 3 main functions. I've got to send this detailed facts report to Rupert Murdoch every single week, wherever he is in the world. And if there's a problem, he rings me. If I don't send it by Monday, 12 p.m., I don't have a job. And I went, that's how a billionaire runs a business. Business is 3 core functions. Most business owners are great at one of them because they have that technical skill of an industry. And that technical skill is the delivery, the service delivery, if you like, if they're a service business, but they're no good at getting sales. They're typically not good salespeople, and they're typically not good marketers at all. So they're not, you got 3 functions and they're good at one. Well, that creates an imbalance straight away because they're great at doing the work because they technically know how to do the work, but they're not good at getting it. They're not good at getting paid on time a lot of time. And the whole bookkeeping and understand finances, reading P&Ls and all that sort of stuff. So that's what I work on with business owners, and I encourage business owners, start looking at your numbers. You know, how many leads did you get this week? How many sales did you get this week? What's your conversion rate? Where are your leads coming from? What lead source? You got to know all this stuff, because then you're working on your business by making informed decisions based on facts, not comfort zone. I like doing this, so therefore that's important. No, do what you don't like doing. Learn finances, learn how to read a P&L, learn marketing. Like do some stuff that's going to make you a lot of money, because you being a walking expert in technical for your industry doesn't make you money. Knowing how to sell it at a higher price, that's what makes you money. But just because you're great at something doesn't mean you're going to make any money. But in business, that's the entrepreneurial myth that Michael Gerber talked about. Oh, you're a great plumber. You think you're going to go into business and make a lot of money. Owning a business that does technical work is not the same as being a great plumber. Chalk and cheese. You have no idea how to run a business because you're a great plumber. It's got nothing to do with the subject of business. That's a technical trade that has got nothing to do with business commercial reality.
And this is the 4 hours. The 4 hours minimum has to be the working on a business, not just being busy in the business, working in the business. So you need at least 4 hours to get out of your trade, out of your painting, whatever it is that you're doing, and actually focused on how you can grow the business without you being present. So start having that conversation with yourself.
Yeah. And it's like if you want to be out of it, well, you need to create systems of how to train people, not, oh, I've got to spend 2 months training a new person. Well, they should be self-learning as much as possible with systems so that you get them up to speed in 5 days or 4 weeks, not 6 weeks, 2-3 months. And then after 3 months, you find out they were no good anyway. It's like, yeah, well, you got to learn people skills to identify crappy employees before you hire them. Not 2 months later after you hired them, realize they're bad. It's like, well, learn the people skills to stop that.
Do you find that a lot when you are talking with people from all walks of life doing all sorts of different type of businesses? Do you come across like people who are kind of you feel jumping to like a pie in the sky kind of run, as opposed to going up the staircase and kind of really valuing the different steps? They're looking at that landing up there, and they kind of don't want to take the steps because it's not the landing. However, they want to get to the landing, but they're just refusing to kind of acknowledge the steps there.
You get some people that kind of want to corporatize their business, and I'm going to get a business manager and I'm going to get a sales manager, and they want to put managers in while the business is growing, and they put them in pretty early. Problem is you're making no margin, and therefore you're struggling with cash because you're overpaying people to do roles that you haven't learned enough to do yourself. So therefore you're dependent on these people, and if one of them leaves, you're in a big hole. That's what I call corporatizing. And I meet people that are doing that. You know, they've got 2 or 3 or 4 managers there. No, you got 15 staff, and you got 4 or 5 or 6 managers. It's like you're making no money doing that. That model could be good long term, and that's how a lot of people do it. And sometimes they get the recipe right, and it goes and becomes a $100 million company. But that's 1%, 2% of businesses. So I think if you're going to get someone to do something, you got to know enough about putting someone in that role that you know they're performing well and you have clear KPIs for them so that you both know that they're doing a good job. But a lot of people hire someone, they get a variable called the person, they get a variable called their skills at doing that role. And you don't know if it's person or if you don't know if their skill sets don't suit the role. And then months later, you find out they're not working out, but cost you a lot of money and, you know, cost you a huge amount of money what you didn't make by having good people in there. So getting a skill of understanding good people is absolutely essential. And I spend probably more time on that with clients when I do anything else. I've got to teach you the people skills of recognizing great people before you hire them.
Uh-huh.
Because a lot of people don't know what a great person is. And if I've got like 6 staff, I'll say, rate your employees' work ethic and productivity from great, good, okay, and poor. And they get about 1 in 6 that will be great. They'll get maybe 1 or 2 that are good, and then they get a bunch of averages, and often there's 1 poor. That's a very common mix. But you don't settle for anyone unless they're good or great. Don't settle for average and poor. Just don't settle for them. Oh, but they're hard to get. Yeah, you got to learn how to get them.
Yeah.
You know, there's a problem. Well, get the learning to understand how to do that. Oh, get a recruitment company in. No, don't get a recruitment company in. Learn how to do it yourself.
Yeah, and if you don't have that, again, 4 hours just to devote on how to recruit the first, right? You're constantly shooting yourself in the foot, not understanding that just a little bit every week of learning these skills that are holistically that is needed across the business. You're going to need sales skills in it. You're going to need the marketing skills. You're going to need, you know, those 3 different skills that we mentioned before. You're going to need in any business: the admin, the sales, and the actual implementation of any solution. So you're going to need to know basics in all these areas, and then you're going to need to know the processes to be able to get them off and train other people to be as good, if not better, than you, to be able to
absolutely
back off.
And like, if there's one point I want to emphasize, I learned what I learned by spending 150,000 on the best people I could find in the world everywhere on whatever topic I wanted to learn. That includes a lot of marketers. Like, I've spent 80 plus 90,000 on the best marketers I can find, dozens and dozens of them, to learn what I've learned. Am I a great marketer? Probably, yeah. But did I get there by doing it all myself and reading online? No, because there's nothing much online that you're going to ever learn anything of value from, because the best people don't give away their stuff for free. No one does. No one gives away their best information for free. So people go, oh, I'm going to learn it all. I'll go online. It's like, you're not going to learn it. It doesn't exist. You know, you got to pay the good people, because I look at it this way: how many years you're going to be in business? And if you pay for an education, find some great mentors in whatever the topic is that you want to learn, pay to learn what it is that you want them to help you with to learn that skill. You pay for it once a year, you're done. That's it. You get super success for the rest of your time in business, because a lot of businesses make money, but not from my perspective, because money is not income. You know, what your P&L says your total income, that's not money. Right down the bottom where it says net profit, that's money. You don't make money by getting a sale. People go, oh, I need more sales, so I make more money. You're not making money from sales. You're making money from profit. And that little thing down the bottom needs to be looked at as a percentage, not as a dollar figure. You're making 100 grand net profit. That's impressive if you turn over 400 grand. But if you turn over 100 million, 100 grand net profit is appallingly bad. So it's like, your net profit doesn't matter. The percentage of net profit, that's what matters. And to learn how to increase that percentage is a learning skill that is very different to everything else that's out there in society, because 90% of businesses, once they're established and at 700K total income, their net profit margin's 10% or less, because I've asked dozens of accountants this. I've looked at hundreds of P&L statements to say, yep, you're turning over money, but you're not making your net profit percentages healthy, and then they're struggling in their stress. So, but to increase net profit margin is how savvy you are on the topic of business. Can you hire staff that need to be replaced? And when you don't have great performing staff, you have okay or poor, you never get good margin from them. If you don't have great marketing, you don't get the cream of the crop in the best clients coming to you that will pay higher prices. So therefore, you're struggling with margin, fighting amongst the scratch with competitors. You don't know how to sell at a higher price than your competitors. So you're stuck in this, you know, battle of the bottom dwellers of margin, and you're making income, but your margin's not there. I met businesses with 100 staff that are making 3 and 5% net profit margins, saying, that's about as good as I can get it. I'm like, well, I got clients in your same industry doing 15 and 25%. So, so it's understanding that, but get a mentor to pay you. It's like, if you're going to pay a marketing company, ask them for advice while you're paying them. Don't just let them send you reports that you look at and go, I don't know what any of that means. So what does this really mean? How do I understand? That's how I learn. It's like, I'm going to pay you, but I want to learn. Don't just do stuff for me. I paid SEO companies, 18 years ago. It's like, what are you doing? They didn't tell me much, but I started reading between the lines and I understood the really big ingredients, and that's how I learned SEO. It's like, you just get some marketing people, but pay them to also educate you as part. If they don't want to educate you, it's all secret stuff and we can't tell you, get another marketing company.
Yeah. So you can keep learning, because otherwise, like, you got to have a concentration in so many different areas, and moving forward, that if you haven't taken that time to kind of put the systems in place or to learn as you go, sooner or later, this train is coming. You're going to have to do it, right? Like, you can't just jump into it. Is there any way around this? Have you found any way around this?
You got to make margin in business, because if you make margin, then you can afford really premium quality people like marketers and a lot of other things. Margin just solves so many problems in business. Most businesses are struggling with one thing, cash flow, and they think, I need more sales. No, you don't. You need a higher margin, because if your margin is low, then most of what comes in goes straight back out and you got no cash. So, if you got 0% net profit, you're making nothing.
All the stuff that is maybe not the sexy part of business, the sales part, the nice packaging. We gets a lot of, there's shows on TV talking about the sales and marketing can be very attractive. But the processes, the distribution, that how side of it, maybe not so attractive to talk about. Well, you kind of call up the delivery guy and, he makes every time a sales comes in. So do you think, like, how can we start to break it down? If we're coming in or we're starting off, how do we get into understanding the nitty gritty of our house in a way that isn't overwhelming, that helps us just to focus on, because if we've been in business, I'd imagine, for a few years, we've got piles of cobweb kind of processes that are no longer relevant, maybe, that, there's better technology that we don't need to spend now maybe 3-4 hours when we can do it in half an hour. Like, how do you keep tabs on all these areas all the time to be successful in, all the things we need to be successful to be good at entrepreneurship?
Well, lots of different ways. I'll give you some examples. I like to ask clients, what's holding your business right now, holding your business back right now, it's stopping by growing by 50% in the next three months. And whatever they say, good, let's work on that. So that can be a simple one. Oh, I can't find good staff. Great, let's go and get you some good staff. And sometimes I go, okay, if that wasn't a problem, what will the next problem be? I won't have time. Okay, let's talk about your role and how many caps you wear, because business owners are typically the technician and the salesperson, for example, and maybe a bit of admin. Sometimes they're doing a bit of bookkeeping. Sometimes they're doing a bit of management as well. So there's typically 5 main functions in the business. There's the sales, which includes the marketing, there's delivery, there's admin, there's management, and there's finance. And that's it. It's like, well, what caps are you wearing and how can we get you out of wearing one of those caps? We want to get you down to one role. Might be salesperson, then we hire a salesperson in a year and get rid of you out of that role. Or it might be whatever, I'm the chief, technician, I'm the most technical person. Okay, let's get you out of doing everything but that. So when you've got a split focus, you're not typically good at any one thing. So that's probably a good place to start, is getting clear of what's holding your business back right now from growing like that super fast. What is it? Can't get leads. Great. Well, it's so much easier to improve than to start with a blank page. And that's the same with marketing. So whatever people are doing in marketing, there's always another level. Marketing is not a science. It's not a black and white, it's working or it's not. It's like there's infinite levels of effectiveness. So you can improve your marketing. If the smarter the marketer you engage, then the better your results can be. Get smarter marketers that can help with it. Understand it's kind of science because you look at it from the numbers, but then you've got to be creative to improve. But it's just identifying what's really holding your business back. Another thing is to find out what's a profitable niche, because people go, the target market is a big topic. Like, who's your target market? People tell me not very good answers usually to that question. So what's your ideal, most profitable target market? Oh, well, it's only 10% of my income. Yeah, but who are they? Tell me about them. And then they tell me, I go, great, let's go and get a lot more of them. Because if we increase the volume of high margin clients from 10% to 20 to 30, 50, 80%, your margins go so much higher, it's not funny. And so, like, look at electrical contracting. Electrical contracting as an industry can be, because I've had a lot of them as clients, can be you're an electrician, local electrician, you do work for consumers. Great. Or you can be one that does lots of tenders on bigger projects. Or you could be someone that does a lot of housing projects and it's cookie cutter doing the same sort of work all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's three of them make very different profit margins in that industry. And I've had clients doing all three, or one of the three in that industry, and one's so much more profitable, it's not funny. So it's like the trap for a lot of business owners, oh, if I'm going into the plumbing business, I've got to sell all types of plumbing because that's what plumbers do. No, you don't. There's no law that says you have to sell everything that a plumber can sell. Pick your profitable niches and specialize. And that's an example what, look at Elon Musk. Elon Musk does no advertising, none. Doesn't spend any money on Tesla cars at all, advertise. Doesn't even have agents. It's hard to find an agent to even, I want to go and test drive one. Well, I don't think you can anymore in Australia. I think you got to buy it or you don't. Does zero advertising. So that's pretty impressive because he found his niche. There's a really good book called 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing. And one of the laws of marketing is be first. When you're the first, you make margin. Apple, look at their phones, exorbitantly high price, massive margin, huge profitable company. Apple's always made high margins, of course, because they're niching in the product range all the time. They create something that doesn't look and function like other products, therefore they charge higher price. So margin by product differentiation is powerful. Find the niche that is different to others, but then you've got to know how to sell in that niche, which is a challenge. You need really good marketing if you're going to be in a niche. So otherwise people never find you or don't know you exist, or you don't know how to communicate why you're specialists and why you're not a generalist and all that sort of thing. So there's ways that you can do it to get high margin businesses. So yeah, it's really looking at it from that perspective. But a lot of clients I've worked with, they do what other competitors do. I get their margins up to 15 and 20%, which is like 2 or 5% of businesses are getting there in industries by just optimizing the whole business. I make the employees happy. When you make employees happy, customers are happy. When you get happy customers, they refer people that don't buy on price. And when they're referred, those customers already know the price because these people told me. And I remember when I was in Sydney, I was talking to bathroom renovators and people go, oh, I use these guys. They're expensive, but they're really good. So they got massive volumes of referrals. Everyone knew they were expensive and you knew you're going to pay more, but they're really good. And people don't mind that because people buy on value. They don't buy on price, they buy on value. So if you know how to communicate that and articulate that with sales and marketing, you sell at higher margins, you make more money. And I say to people, would you like to have 20 staff to make $200,000 net profit or 10 staff to make $200,000 net profits? It's optional. So get a high margin business, find your profitable niches, get the sales and marketing experts in to help you to achieve it. You're a lot less stressed when you got half the staff numbers to make the same profit. So it's just smart. That's how entrepreneurs think. I want to achieve more by doing less.
Yeah, this is kind of the theme of this conversation, right? Is that if you have to learn this one day or another. You can't just jump into a bigger business without understanding this kind of stuff. Otherwise, you just jump into a bigger headache, a bigger black hole swallowing up your money every week, and eventually it's going to have to crumble. So either learn it now or have to learn it at some point or get out of the business. So
I had a client in direct sales where the people knock on your door and they're representing charities, and he was stuck at 1.5 million. He'd been there for a few years, couldn't get over it in turnover. And I started talking about a lot of things that grow businesses and putting a structure into a business, and a structure is team meetings, talking about numbers and systems and setting that structure up and showing him how to do it. And all of a sudden his business just started to take off. I started talking about KPIs for roles. You've got to have KPIs for people in their role because it's a feedback loop of how you're going in your role. And most business owners don't let their staff know any of the numbers unless it's a weapon to, you did a bad job, look at the bad. No, let them see the numbers, you know. So, and his business did 10 million that year, went from 1.5 stagnant to 10 million in that year, and then 12, then 14, then 18, and then about 4 years after I met him, it was at 45 million operating in 4 countries. Because he just got the internal structure right of how to grow really fast.
Yeah.
And off he went, you know, just went crazy fast, because it's like, it's what, you know, people go, education's expensive, getting a mentor, getting a good marketer. No, ignorance is really expensive. You know, it cost him, you know, 45 million minus 1.5 million. That's what it was costing him not to be there, because he didn't have that knowledge to get in there, kind of thing. Does that make sense? So people go, education is expensive. No, ignorance is more expensive than education, always.
Yeah. If you put it into perspective of what you would be paying a business coach compared to going to university and learning business in the two, you know, chalk and cheese in terms of time and money spent, a business coach is probably going to cost you half as much in half as much time than a university degree.
A lot less than half. I had an accountant out of this, where you say that I learned more from you in your 7-month course that I was running at the time what I did in my 3 degrees. So I had 3 degrees, and he said I learned more from you from a practical point of view. Yeah. So 4 years of uni and compared to, you know, 7 months of education, kind of thing. So yeah, it's not, ignorance is, and that's where one big thing that sets entrepreneurs apart from nearly every other person is everything to them is education. Everything to them is an investment. They pay for things that don't work out. It's a great education of how not to do things. You know, they have an investment mindset where it's always ROI, and they always see the benefit of every experience. You know, they fail in business, they go, wow, I learned so much. You know, so they don't cry about the fact that something didn't succeed, because they're not dwelling where they went. They're looking at the future, going foundations to grow, another foundation to grow faster. Yeah. You know, Elon Musk has been through a hell of a lot of businesses, you know. I don't know all of them. I don't know if he's succeeded in all of them. I've never really sort of done a case study investigation of Elon Musk, but, you know, he was with PayPal and helped them sort of grow really quick. And he had a couple other businesses in between, and boring companies probably not going so well. SpaceX might go broke, but they're not crying about advisors they spent money with, because they're looking at their success that they've got. And that's the key. You just look at what you've got and look at where you're going. Don't cry about the fact that you know, oh, I had 2 marketing companies and a couple of SEO companies and made nothing out of it. Good, go and find a better one. You've learned from that. You've learned that there are bad, crappy suppliers out there. Good, use the education, go and get some better ones. I did that. I've spent a lot of money on really bad outcomes and gone, how can I kind of laugh, because I go, how can they do that? How can they sell rubbish in the marketplace? Like, I'm gobsmacked that that's possible, but it still happens. And, you know, I've spent thousands on things that have been a complete waste of money, but it just teaches me, got to get a bit smarter, got to get, you know, look better. I teach my clients how to recognize good suppliers, good providers, you know, ask them for case studies. Yeah. And if they have a problem telling you something specific, then you worry. I was like, people say, have you got case studies? I say, well, how many do you want? And how long do you want me to talk? I kind of give them a heads up, because I can talk for a long time on case studies. So I asked them politely, how many case studies do you want? Give me some more specifics, and I'm happy to share it. Give me some criteria, what industry or what result, or, you know, what problem do you want to solve? And I'll give you a case study for it, give you examples of what it is that you want to verify that they're good at what they do. So, I remember one guy, I had a phone call one day from a guy that had been to one of my free seminars. I used to have a testimonial sheet that I handed out, and he rang me up, and I didn't even know him. I'd never met him at the seminar, but he rang me up and he said, oh, I came to your seminar a couple of months ago. And he was really gruff about it. And I'm like, okay. And he goes, and I sat in the room and I didn't talk to you. And okay. And he goes, and I rang every one of those testimonials on your sheet. I went, oh, okay. And they're all true. I was like, yeah. It was like I was supposed to be surprised. Why would I be surprised? But he said, I just want to know that, you know, you're not like other people I've met. But his attitude, it's like, I don't want to work with this guy because he's just so skeptical and scared. You know, when you're skeptical, you're scared. You know, he's just so skeptical. I couldn't work with someone like that because everything I did, they'd be, oh yeah, but you know, I'm not here to prove what I know. I'm here to help you to grow. But if you want to prove everything, well, it's like, I can't help you. You know, you need to do some personal growth, you know, because that skeptical mindsets don't help you. They hinder you. You got to be fearless like an entrepreneur says, oh, well, it doesn't work out. We'll learn some things. Great, let's just do it. You know, you got to have that kind of fearless attitude towards giving things a go. As against everything has to work perfectly all the time. That's fear. Yeah. And that fear mindset it's almost self-fulfilling. You'll make something not work because you're too scared, and you'll dwell on little things that don't mean much. You miss the big picture.
So building up this resiliency in you. And how you, because it sounds like a lot of the skills that you will need in business, you got these core skills, is it kind of crosses over, and to be good at business seems to be that it's a lot of the same stuff that you would need to be good at life. There's only 24 hours in the day, so you know you got kind of fixed costs that ain't going anywhere. Time can be, you know, a fixed thing that it's not changing anytime soon. But then you got variable costs. So business and life, do you see the parallels in here that once you get good in one, it's easier to get good in the other? Can you speak on that maybe?
Yeah, absolutely. Your personality is it's a help or a hindrance in business. It certainly is. And entrepreneurs, they're very calm people. They have a high EQ. EQ is the terminology that's been out for a couple of decades, emotional intelligence. So emotional intelligent people are not bothered by whatever's going on. You know, it's like, yeah, yep, need to give that some attention. Not, oh crap, oh no, that's terrible. It's like, oh, we'll just function. You know, they're just present with whatever's going on and visionary towards the future. They're not going, oh, that should have happened, and oh, I wish that had, and if that had happened, and oh, you know, they did this, I'm going to blame. That's all in the past. They're not in the past at all. They're present and future orientated all the time, and that's absolutely, it's personality driven. That's not anything to do with business. You're a human running your business. The business doesn't exist without a human. It's like try and find a photo of a business. You can't. It's an intangible. It's a figment of our imagination. A business doesn't exist. It's an agreed imaginary concept that we've constructed in society. It doesn't exist. But if you try to find a photo, you're going to show people. So I've said a lot of times that if you're going to go into business, you probably should study some psychology. In fact, you need to study people in depth. And the best way to study people is understand yourself. I understand what thinking, and it took me a long while to get what thinking into my head, because I meet entrepreneurs and their vision just goes crazy. You know, it's like, how do they do that? I got to learn how to do that massive extrapolation fearlessly about what I'm thinking now to how far in the future can I take that. I had to learn that. I had none of that. I had none of that thinking, you know, initially when I was in for the first 15 years in business, 12 years in business. I had no idea of thinking like that. You know, it took a long while to get that visionary entrepreneurial what-based thinking into my head, because I thought it was all about how I'm going to learn how to cut down raw trees. I make lots of money. Yeah, but if I can't sell it at a higher price, I never do. So it's like, you know, so I got stuck in how thinking because that's what society teaches. So you got to kind of do a bit of work on yourself. You want to be super successful in business, you got to start looking at some mindset things of what's going on up here. Mindset, I think, is a combination of beliefs, which are a big topic on their own, combined with personality, combined with life experiences. Because what we think we've experienced makes us knowledgeable. No, because you don't know what you don't know. And that's the problem. I mean, people who've got 20 years experience. It's like, man, you seriously don't know what you don't know. You know, you got 20 experiences doing it the same way. You're not innovating. You haven't gone outside your comfort zone to really stretch yourself. And that's a personal trait. You got to be willing to do things that other people don't, and be a contrarian and be a black sheep amongst all the other sheep. You got to, that's a personal trait. That's not anything to do with business. So it's very much got a lot to do with personal growth, personality traits, and how courageous you are. And how willing to be a nonconformist and do things differently. And that's what sets you apart. That's what entrepreneurs are. They're contrarians. Like everyone does this. I hear the word everyone, I'm thinking about how to do it differently. It's like, I remember someone in McDonald's, high up in McDonald's, being asked, what do you see your business looking like in 10 years? And I go, don't know what it will be selling, but I know we'll be selling more of it than anyone else. I love that. So what we sell doesn't matter. We're just going to do it better than anyone else because we understand margin better than anyone. It's the highest margin, best business in the world because they're the highest margin business in the world. That's what's paying for the real estate, not the highest income. Yeah, it might be highest income as well, but if they don't make margin, you can't pay for the most expensive real estate. It's a margin business. And that's what they perfected as a business model, is how to make real high margin in that niche. What we sell, don't care. We just know we're going to be selling more of it than anyone else in 10 years. It's like, don't get attached to your product and your service. Like, figure out how to master it. And that's it. Good. Focus on selling it at a higher margin and doing more volume of it at high margin, Get the skills to do that,
Yeah, so making sure that you're not running off with any one area, and I guess it comes back down to the end of the day margin, is that you have all these different KPIs, you have all these different goals that you want to achieve, but if you're not keeping your finger on the pulse of especially these major ones without having the correct margin, you're going to drive yourself into the ground faster than kind of anything else. Making sure that you have a cash flow to be able to ongoingly develop, especially in these earlier days, and not being scared to try different things, to question what you're doing and why you're doing it and how you're doing it, so that you can constantly tweak it, so that the change isn't so big, so the change isn't so drastic and with a lot of risk associated. I guess if we can reduce that, change the amount, like if we're changing our own personal behavior or anything like that, is we're changing it in a small enough way, reducing our shower time, reduce it by a couple of seconds every day, and just keep doing it by little bits, that change becomes a lot less risky and therefore becomes a lot more doable, or a higher chance of success in doing that kind of change. So would you agree with that?
Yeah, look, embracing change is a good idea, because we do get stuck in our ways as people. We're strange species because we love change, but not too much. And we love consistency, but change and consistency are opposites, but we want both, we like both, we need both. But sometimes too much of one's not good, So, but most people err on the side of too much consistency and not enough change. So yeah, breaking that norm and doing things differently. It's like, people have a shower and they routinely might start their toes and work up. Well, start doing the opposite. And it makes people really weird and uncomfortable. Brush your teeth with your different hand. Break routines and understand how much of a comfort zone you're living in. Because most people have got no idea how much of a comfort zone they're operating in. Why can't I improve my business? Because I'm not open to new ideas, because I don't like change. Yeah. Underneath all that, there's this resistance to change. A lot of time you're repelling opportunities for improvement because you've got a fear about change. You don't like it. You're too conformist. So I've done a lot of things. Like in a workshop many years ago, I remember saying, I was talking about this, and I said, drive really late at night when there's no cars on the road and you're on a back street, drive on the wrong side of the road. And I had a psychologist really tell me off. What are you doing telling people to break road laws? I can tell you I'm not an entrepreneur. Because I was just trying to illustrate an example how fear-based we are. We're scared of doing things outside the box. We can't do it. It's just, I'm not saying him go out and break laws, but that's how he took it. The principle was, it was just an example of how conforming we are, because we're so stuck in comfort zone and too scared. Yeah. And he was trying to vilify me because I'm trying to give an example. It's like, man, you're really stuck in your comfort zone if you can't get the principle.
Proving the point.
You're just trying to, so that's a habit, so it's just understanding entrepreneurs and non-conformists. That's you can't do what everyone else does and think you're going to achieve anything better. It's like,
so look for those little subtle ways that you can maybe change up, drive home or to work in a different way, use a different mode of transportation, eat with your opposite hand, start a conversation in a different way than what you normally. All these kind of little things will help us if we, so you're focused on starting a conversation in a different way. Well, it means for you to be mindful then of how did you start a conversation, and maybe that'll lead into further insights of the way you communicate, and why do people then turn off you or turn on to certain topics or not other topics. I guess becoming more self-aware.
Yeah, it's self-awareness. I think my greatest asset is 30 years of personal growth, because I've learned so much about myself. And when you can't spot in others what you haven't spotted in yourself, and you're blind, most people are blind to a lot of things. And so people that aren't like them, they're weird, stupid people I shouldn't listen to, because they're just, I compassionately understand why people do the things they do, no matter what they do. I understand murderers, I understand people that commit crimes. I deeply and intimately understand so many people in so many ways. They don't bother me either. And that's it. When you really understand people, they stop annoying you and frustrating you and stressing you out, because they become very predictable and you just totally accept that's just who they are.
Yeah.
And if you want to get good at marketing, learn a lot about people. Want to get good at sales, learn a lot about people. Want to get good at leadership, learn a lot about people. Want to get good at recruitment, learn a lot about people. It's the number one skill of all success in business to me, is understanding people. And the easiest way to learn about people, and I used to ask this a lot too to groups of people, what's the best way to learn about other people? And study them and do so. No, learn about yourself, because you're a people. Start with you. You're the best specimen that there is.
Yeah, exactly.
Understand your fears, understand what's holding you back, understand what you're unaware of, understand what you resist, understand your habits, understand what you don't like doing. Why don't you like doing it? Ask yourself lots of why questions. Why am I doing this? Why am I not doing that? Why do I like doing this? Why don't I like doing that? Start with a whole lot of why, just question everything you do for a day.
Yeah.
Then how can I do this better? How can I do this? Is this the best way to do this? How can I do it in a better way? So I study words. I just pick one word and study it. And I've done this for a long, long time. It's like, what's humility? The mother of all learning. People don't have humility, then you can't teach them. But where do you get humility? You get it from courage. If you don't have courage, you can't have humility, because you can't admit things that you don't know, and you look bad. So you got to deal with looking bad, and what do people think of me, and where does courage come from? So these are really interesting things that I keep studying and have to understand people at a really deep level. And that gives me the ability to lead anyone. It's the old saying, there's no such thing as a bad teacher, just a bad student. Well, there's no such thing as a bad leader. There's no such thing as a bad follower. People that don't do what you want, it's just poor leaders. We don't learn leadership as a topic either. So learn how to be a better leader, learn how to be a better teacher.
Yeah.
Learn how to be a better learner. Understand how learning works. How's the brain work?
Yeah.
Well, brain's constructed of what, why, and how. If you start with what and why, it's like a jigsaw puzzle. You don't start by putting little bits together. You wouldn't teach a kid how to do a jigsaw puzzle. Pick this up, see how this has to fit with that. That doesn't fit. Let's pick another one. See how that doesn't fit with that. Let's pick another one. You can do it from a how. You can go, what are we trying to achieve here? See the picture on the box? That's what we're trying to achieve. That's why certain things go in a certain spot, because it fits that what.
Yeah.
That's how the brain works. What, why, then how?
Yeah.
So understanding yourself, what's missing. What are you great at? How, what, or why? And think about what you're not great at, and go and focus on those words. Focus on that for a day. What's the what that you're missing out on, So
business can be this beautiful path of the self-development. People say once they've had kids, they kind of change them. I guess that's something to reflect off, and I guess in business it reflects off too, because as you start to train staff, the way you've trained them, their competencies reflect back on you. So where we've kind of saw this in a lot of religious books. I think in the Oracle at Delphi, know yourself and you'll know the universe. So it kind of echoes through, know yourself and be able to observe that and be present in your business, and pick one thing at a time that you're going to dip your toe in, and make sure you jump in. But once you've jumped in, you'll feel that, and you'll know if it's whether or not you're going to continue with that, whether or not continuing with that. And it's just this continual cycle of checking it out, putting your toe in and jumping in. getting out if it's not for you, staying in a bit longer if it is. And if you can keep on this cycle and find that joy in it and find that value of why you're doing it to start with, behind all the external watches or cars or any of that kind of stuff, then you should be in essentially the best career in the world.
Yeah. Business is the greatest opportunity to self-express. That's what it is. It's a self-expression of who you are. And sometimes it means you got to work on yourself. You know, I look at myself when I was 20 and going into business and what I was like personality-wise. It's like, oh, man. I was as bad as they come, I can tell you. And I was like that for 7 years before I realized I don't know what I don't know. And I figured out what I don't know. And it's like, oh. And then I learned this thing called personal growth around the same time. I didn't know what those two words were either. And then, you know, it's like, man, I look back where I was, mate. It's just crazy. I cringe at how bad I was. So wherever anyone else is in business, they're a lot better than me, almost guaranteed. So it doesn't matter where you are. It just matters of where point of origin doesn't matter. It's like, where do you want to be? All that matters is where do you want to be? And if you can imagine it, let's go for it, you know?
Yeah, beautiful. And that's an amazing skill, one, to be able to put all the pieces together, but also being able to get someone else's vision, get someone else's desires or needs that they have, and be able to put it into your know-how and your experience of how you pieced all these different elements together and made it into businesses now where it's not a burden for them anymore. Now it is that joy and being able to help serve other people. That must be deeply fulfilling for you, because you've essentially snowballed yourself into many little other snowballs now going down the mountain.
I love making people happier. It sounds kind of boring and corny, but they come to me for business success. My aim is to make them happier, and they probably don't realize that's ultimately my goal, because you know, they're stressed when I meet them, and then they're happy when I leave them, and I want to leave them happier. That's my goal, and that means you've got to do a lot of things to make them happier, but ultimately that's the ultimate outcome of what I'm aiming to achieve. And it could be they build this really big successful business, but they don't have to work in it. It's optional. Yeah, they're really happy. They're really happy about that, and so it's really increasing their happiness is the ultimate end goal for me.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, thank you so much for being on here, for sharing your journey with us. I'm going to have links for anyone who wants to learn more about what you're doing, so they can just follow you through the links that will be provided. But thank you very much, Tim, for
Thanks very much, Josh. It's been a pleasure, mate. It's been fun to talk about all this fun stuff that I don't get to talk about very often, so I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, so thank you very much, and maybe in the future we'll come back and talk again some more, because we're only just touching on the surface. I feel that the overlap here that we've just kind of like gone on is completely life-changing. If you're starting off in business, whether or not you're a technician and you've got 10 years experience in going off into being an entrepreneur, or whether or not you're the other way and you've got this understanding that you want to create businesses, you want to create value in that way, but you don't really have a technical skill, what you've just been able to share with us is just this complete kind of blending of how these two come together and how we can start to think about this in an achievable way without it just being mind mess.
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you very much, and we'll talk again in the future then. Have a beautiful day.
Josh. Yeah, thanks, you too.
Thank you, Tim Stokes, a business mentor and truth-driven innovator who's proving that scaling with integrity is not only possible, but profitable. If you'd like to learn more about his mentoring programs, business strategies, or his groundbreaking research on AI truth design, visit scalewithmargin.com.au. You can also connect with him on LinkedIn, YouTube, and across social media platforms. Tim, thank you so much for sharing your insights today and reminding us that whether it's business or AI, scaling with integrity always creates the strongest results.